I was teaching scripture in a room to year 9s earlier this year, and there was there's a whiteboard at the front of this room, and there was a whiteboard at the back. And so I just spent the whole lesson, every time I changed my point, I'd make them all turn around and look at the one at the back. And it was just really fun to I didn't actually have anything particularly different on the other side, but I was like, all right, I need more room. I'm going to go over here, and you're all shifting.
That's right.
Got to use an hour somehow.
These were the techniques taught to me when I was 14 years old.
Which is a really good tie-in to last week's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chipmunks podcast. We've been talking with Dave about preaching and teaching and church things. Yes. We finished last week's episode talking about Dave's work and some stuff he's been doing, and this has been really cool to chat about ministry stuff, and we were also teasing potentially going overseas. But before we get there, I think this is a really cool link to what we were talking about last week. What we didn't really get to was you're working for 11 years in
Water Resources Board.
Thank you. In one section, and then you've worked somewhere else, and you've done photography, and you've worked for yourself, and you're working on pools, and you're doing all this stuff, and you're really involved in church. But from a work perspective, what's it like to be a Christian for you in a workplace, particularly one that's moving around all the time? And yeah.
Okay, so it's hard to openly talk to people about Christian things in a workplace. How can you have a desk conversation? People are not often keen to talk about things even in the lunchroom. So this is my technique.
Okay.
I take you for a drive somewhere. Right, we have to go on a site inspection or go somewhere.
Yeah.
2 hours in the car, you're mine.
Yeah.
Right?
Excellent.
I'll try to convert Uber drivers. Right? We had the traffic accident up at Yarrawarrah.
We did.
I'm directing traffic. People are talking to me.
I did hear this.
Yeah, that's all I need.
You're directing traffic and evangelising at the same time.
Yeah. Same time. Why waste an opportunity? You know, we have footballers come and enjoy breakfast with us. How many churches have 20 people show up after church who want to sit down with Christians? What an opportunity.
Yeah, right.
There was the City to Surf I raced in a number of years, and also, of course, we have the Cronulla Sunderland to Surf. And that starts on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And it starts outside St John Sutherland, but they back up to the Uniting Church. So here I am, freezing cold August morning, and there's people sitting all over the Uniting Church sort of fence and all this sort of stuff. And some of the regular parishioners are going in scowling at all these heathens who are, not realising that some of them are Christians. So here are 10,000 people on the doorstep of 2 churches on a Sunday morning, and they don't do anything about it. Have your 70s band out there, give out free water.
Yeah.
God has put 10,000 people on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Use it.
What's your go-to? If you're evangelising Uber drivers or people that you're directing, what are you starting with?
What do I start with is often, the question of particularly people my age, where are you going? All right. Now, the particular fellow who I was talking to knew me well, and all I had to do was point out that these were all the people from the church. The people from the church were helping. Everyone else is taking video camera shots.
Yeah.
Right. But the people who are actually directing the traffic, the people who are out there dealing with the guy.
This is the Yarrawarrah event that happened a little while back.
My wife is talking to the people who were in the other car, who were clearly in shock and I turned around and I see that she's talking to them. Fantastic, they're covered.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I said to him about, and they got us into the conversation. In actual fact, he brought it up when we said that.
Yeah.
At Miranda Fair at Christmas time, I'll wait till you got all those, everyone's trying to find a seat for a meal. Is that seat vacant? Can I sit there? Yeah. What are you doing for Christmas? Oh, our church has got this carols thing on. Right, great opportunities.
Yeah.
I worked in Lakemba for many years when I was at college, and I'd wait till prayer time had finished, and I'd go to the coffee shop 10 minutes after that. Oh, is that a spare seat? Do you mind if I sit there? Opportunities everywhere. When the Olympic Games were on, we were encouraged as Christians to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
So about 25% of the group I was in were actually Christians.
That's cool.
And we weren't allowed to talk about Christianity at the event, but that doesn't stop me on the trains. And people don't talk at two places. They don't talk in lifts.
Yep.
And they don't talk in public transport.
No.
Yep.
Except during the Olympic Games.
There you go.
And people did
Yep.
talk, oh, where are you going? Oh, you're a volunteer.
Yeah,
Oh,
I remember
yeah,
that.
of course.
When I went to the games, I
Yeah?
remember doing that. Yeah.
There you go.
No, just lots of other people were talking on the train when you
Yeah,
put
right.
it into Olympic
So
Park.
we had little tracks that had all the Olympic game records and then a Christian message at the back. And so I had 4 journeys. I had the train journey from Sutherland to Redfern, and then from Redfern out. So I had 4 people that each day that I'd be able to give a tract away to.
Unreal.
Yeah, right.
That's really cool.
The opportunities are there for everyone.
Is that the same when you've got your own business as well? How does that?
Yes.
How do you use that?
So then I worked for 2000 to 2018 with big corporate engineering. And then 2018 I restarted my own business. Hydrofix again. This time not doing the building work, but being an advisor. Some of the firms have a special SMEs, Specialist Material Expert.
Okay.
Which means you can work half as much and charge twice as much.
But do exactly what you like doing, which is coming in and finding the solution at the last minute.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you've done that a couple of times, people, I don't advertise, I don't have a website. I just have a surname that's people can remember.
Yeah.
And, I get, we did a job at Hurstville where people had been trying to do it since 2007. So the big Warrenora pipeline that we all know runs through Hurstville and ran through this property. Just to take it was the shortest route in 1967, but if you're trying to build a big high-rise building, you can't have a 1,200 millimetre water pipe through your basement.
No.
And so an old boss of mine was about to sign off on a set of plans, saw this and thought, no, it's not going to work.
No.
And rang me up and said, David, are you busy? We got a solution. We're actually, close to putting it together. And one of the fellows who was the lead on that then moves to another job and rang me up. Dave, are you busy?
Yeah, cool.
And so that's, so I get to choose the jobs I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
I generally work at the big end of town. I'm often dealing with pipes that are 100 years old. And in the long time I've been working, I've never had the wheels fall off a job.
That's
It's a
good.
pretty good record.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
good.
good. Well done.
And, I come up with simple solutions. I'm Mr. Simple.
Awesome.
Mr. Simple. Very
It's
cool.
great if it works.
Yeah.
And so did that include your travelling as well?
Yeah.
Was it for doing
Yeah,
water,
yes.
like hydraulic stuff?
In 1979, I nearly got and so this was my last year with the Water Resources Commission, I nearly got a gig going to Iran. And if you recall, they had the revolution in Iran in '79.
Yep. Right.
And when that happened, and we've all seen that fantastic movie.
What's it called? So it's got Ben.
Yeah.
It's got Matt. No, Matt Damon's not in it. Ben,
I'm just trying to think of
what's the other
Affleck?
guy? Ben Affleck. Thank you.
Ben Affleck.
Yeah. Great
What's
movie.
it called?
I don't know what we're talking about.
It's a movie where they have to get people out of Iran.
They get people out of Iran, right?
Oh,
it's like a CIA.
I do know what we're
forget
talking
called.
about. Is it the one where they make up the movie? Is it that one?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good movie, and I don't remember what it's called.
Argo.
Argo.
That's right. So I've been to those places in Iran.
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
But in '79, I didn't get the gig to go there.
Okay.
And so 4 Australian engineers at the same time as that movie's happening are caught up in the northwest of Iran in a remote area, and they can't get out. And they were actually able to jump over the border up north. And so my wife's going, well, thank goodness you didn't go.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Totally.
right.
So then 2005, I actually did go to Iran. But the reason I didn't get the gig was because even though I had the knowledge of the hydraulics and all that sort of stuff, they said, you have never worked overseas. And it was a fair question.
Yeah.
How do people go if they've never worked out of country? Now, since then, in 2002, I had the opportunity to take a short-term mission trip to Kosovo. So it's a couple of years after the war, we're still rebuilding. The UN is still in control. There's still guys walking around with automatic machines, and there's roadblocks everywhere, and you do not walk off the road because there are landmines everywhere. It's scary stuff, and we're rebuilding houses.
Yep.
And who's rebuilding the houses for this now Muslim country? Christians. What were there governments in there giving support a year after the event? No. So big names, and I won't name the charities, but my mother supported this charity for years, and they're driving around in brand new 4-wheel drives, staying in the best hotels, earning $10,000 a month, giving advice, and so that a lot of the money is not hitting the ground.
Yeah.
And one of the first phrases that we learn is "un homme volontaire." I am a volunteer. I'm here without pay. You're from where? From Austria? No, you're from Australia. Right? Why do you come from Australia? Well, because we're Christians.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we helped rebuild in 2002, and I went back in 2003. You've come back. Why did you come back? Well, because we're Christians.
Yeah.
And you're talking to people before you go. You're going to Kosovo? Why are you going to Kosovo? Well, let me tell you why. So great opportunities
Yeah, it's cool.
to talk. And we took a team over of about a dozen people both times. And about a quarter of the team crashed and burned when they hit the ground.
In what way?
Couldn't handle
Yep.
the culture. Just it was too strange, too hard.
Yeah, sure.
And when I first went over there, I thought I'm going over there. I'm an engineer. I could build stuff. We're here to build houses.
Yeah.
No, we're there to talk to the people. Because people would come on the building site and sort of say, "Hey, I've seen you guys building here. Would you like to come to coffee to my house?"
Beautiful.
This is not a question you say no to.
No, definitely not.
So our missionary friends who were working in there would come to coffee with us in the afternoon. So sometimes we go 3 places in the afternoon. You had to drink a lot of coffee. And it's Turkish coffee, so,
Good stuff.
Packs a punch.
fortunately I like it black. One of the girls went visiting with one of the missionary guys and she ended up having 6 coffees or something. That she was climbing the wall that night.
That's correct.
But then I realised that it's not about the building, it's about the ministry and the opportunity to talk to people in their area. And so I've been to Kosovo twice, I've been to Macedonia, been to Bali. I've worked commercially in Iran and in Japan, and I spent 3 years with the Kitaki Trust in Tanzania.
What do you, as if you had a word of advice for people who really struggle to see or take those opportunities that are everywhere?
I would think, regardless of how you feel, find a short-term mission trip overseas. Step out of your comfort zone. Don't think you're ready for it, because no one's ever ready for it.
Well, that's what you were saying last episode too, like the yes but thing. Yeah.
So the year 13, they go over to Fiji. Fantastic opportunity. And some people will go over there thinking it's a great holiday, and and other people will get the vision. Yeah. Not everyone will. Some people will come back and, So when I was working in Tanzania, we were building a school for the Anglican Church there through the Kataki Trust. And I was living and working in the poorest area of Tanzania. So of the 200 people I had working for me, not a single person had water or electricity to their home. And people would come out from Australia for a couple of weeks to sort of, do a little trip. And they come in and they said, "We've got a concrete floor." I was like, "Yeah, you got a concrete floor." And when I came back the first time, it was just before Christmas. And I couldn't go to Marina Fair. It was a reverse culture shock.
Who was saying that? Anthony Elliard said the same thing when he went over to, what is it? Starts with M. Ethiopia, not M.
I was going to say, it doesn't
start with M.
I thought you were thinking about something else, which is why I didn't say Ethiopia.
No, but it's Ethiopia. Yeah,
Ethiopia,
he said exactly the same thing.
Yep.
He said he really struggled to get used to being back in that material access.
And we organised our own life. I realised the waste that I had in my own life. It's harder to come back than it is to go there. But still, some people would go over there and would just brush past them. It wouldn't affect them. And other people who were really open to God's hearing, it wasn't just a holiday. They caught the vision. And it was. But it's an experience. I would encourage every Christian at some stage in their life to take that opportunity, not just to, do a tourist trip, but actually to hit the ground. So I, of the 200 people I had working for me, probably 3 spoke English well. I did have a translator. So I learnt to work out of country, out of culture, out of language. And we did okay.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool.
Can I ask you about your family?
Yeah, sure.
Just tell us about who is in your family, but also what has God taught you through being a parent?
Well, good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so yes, been married for nearly 50 years.
Yes.
Got 4 children. All my kids love and serve the Lord.
That's awesome.
And 3 are married, and one of my children, Artie Lee, she's the support for all the rest. All married Christian people. And my youngest daughter was a member of Solis for a while before they moved to South Australia. And at one time she was going out with some boys that I didn't think were the right sort of people. I think, Ethan, you've heard this story maybe before, but I said, "Jess, I haven't met your latest boyfriend." She said, "You're not gonna." And I said, "Why's that?" She said, "Oh, you'll just pray him away."
Pray him away. I have not heard this story. This is great.
And I said, "Oh, Jess,
pray him away.
I don't need to meet him to pray him away."
Got to take care of that.
That's so good. I love that so much.
So you've got how many daughters do you have then?
So I got 3 daughters and one
one
son.
son.
Yep.
Right.
So in the Gaskell family, for 7 generations, one son has had one son.
Really?
Oh,
that's interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah, so my son's called Samuel. That is the family name.
Yep.
And I should have been called Samuel, but I wasn't.
No.
But my father thought it was a stupid idea at the time, but when I called it my son Samuel, he thought it was a great idea. So I'm the head of our clan of the Gaskell family, and my one son has had one son.
Oh, there you go. Wild.
So 3 married, all to lovely Christian girls.
Beautiful.
All the kids are involved in churches.
Awesome.
They've all been involved in work. My eldest daughter ran through the Stu Corshaw School of How to Be a Youth Leader.
Yep.
She was up at Engadine. He was at Guyamere, but still taught other youth leaders how to be youth leaders.
Yeah.
You know, this is.
Yeah, it was
I've
unreal.
known Stu for too many years, but I've owned more Volkswagens than he has. So
Yes.
I did the redevelopment of Grace Point Church when they subdivided that off, and so Stu would often drop in the afternoon and we'd have a chat,
Yeah, lovely.
and he'd ask me questions about the combi and.
Yeah.
All of the kids live within 15 minutes of the fridge.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
Except for our one daughter who has moved to Adelaide,
Mm-hmm.
and she's now going to a church in Adelaide.
Cool.
That is the 11th church plant in Adelaide
No way.
from this church.
Oh, unreal.
And I worked in Adelaide in 2008 for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing the bid for the desal plant over there, and so I got called into a team there. So I was over there working 2 weeks and then come back for a 3-day weekend. So I had opportunity there. I went to church there once a week. But I go to Bible study there every week, and I go to Bible study at our church once a week. So I'd fly back just in time to go through there.
Awesome.
And that church had done one church plant in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And so now
Now they're at 11. So it's
they're
the
up
same
to 11.
church.
So it's
Awesome.
sort of like a
Nice.
soul revival
Yeah, that's
in
hardcore.
South Australia.
Yeah, praise the Lord.
That's cool. And what the second part of my question was, what has God taught you through being a parent?
Sorry, see?
What has God taught you through being a parent?
Well, the big thing was, as I sit there as a parent with my young infant child, and I want to help the kid, you know, I can help them do what they're doing. No, they've got to do it by themselves.
Yep.
And I can see that they're not doing it right and they're going to hurt themselves or they're going to do something wrong. And I suddenly realised this is what we do to God. God is there to help us. He is a great resource. All we have to do is ask. All we have to do is pray for him. And we say, sorry, Lord, I'll save you for the big ones. I can do this one by myself. Yeah, not. And I've realised how much I had ignored asking for God's help when I
Right.
should have.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a cool thing.
So
He
that-
does teach us a lot through
Ah,
young people, doesn't
it
he?
does. And so, it's not the same in every family, but I praise God that all of my kids have a strong faith.
Yeah. Oh, that's really.
And so we would, every mealtime, we would sit down, we'd have our meal, we'd sort of say grace. But grace in our family was like a prayer time. So, your sausages were usually cold by the time we actually got to, And so the kids learned to pray as a family,
Yeah, it's cool. That's really beautiful.
and they saw what I was doing and the work I was doing at the church and that, but we also got them involved. We have a farm down the coast, and we use that for ministry for 25 years. At Easter time, we had a service down there. People would come camping at Easter with all sorts of different churches, originally from our home church, but then other churches came. And we'd have probably 60 or 70 people camping.
Wow.
And we'd have up to 100 people in the peak times who would come for the Sunday night service, Sunday morning service. Now, Ethan's been down there. We don't have a space for 100 people undercover,
No.
so it's got to be fine.
Yeah.
Now, if you know the South Coast and Easter, well, guess what? It rains.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it does.
So for 25 years, it never rained at 10 o'clock on Easter Sunday morning.
Really?
And one particular year, it was looking really bad. And the clouds are there, and you just know it's going to come crackers. One of the guys sort of said, look, we should have the service a little bit earlier. I said, no, God knows what time we're having it. If we have it earlier, we're not trusting him. And believe me, the clouds looked like they were going to open up.
We've had the same thing at like at Grace Point. Like we've been doing as Solis for 10 years. We've been doing Easter outside.
That's right.
And it hasn't rained once.
That's
It's
right.
been lovely
No,
every year.
And you got no cover there at all.
Yep, no cover down at Grace Point. And before that, we were doing it at Greenhaven at Mum and Dad's place.
That's right.
Like,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, for the whole of the church plant, we've been doing it outside
Yeah.
on Easter morning, and it's been
Why should we not think that God can control the heavens?
yeah.
So this one particular year, some people had actually driven all the way down from Sydney. So obviously there were people, if you've got 100 people there, there are people who would be staying nearby who would come to the service. And these people had driven all the way down from Sydney. And they said they had their wipers on the entire way until they turned into the property.
Yeah, wow. That's wild.
Now, half an hour after the service, yes, the heavens did open.
Yeah.
But it was dry.
That's beautiful. That's really cool.
I think that leads me to our next question is we've talked a lot about your work a fair bit and the opportunities that have come from that, but also I want to ask you about church. So you're involved in St John's at Sutherland for a very long time. Just tell us about some of the highlights from that as you throughout different ministries that you served in, but then also how did you end up coming to Soul Revival as well? I'd be interested to hear about that.
Okay, so so we converted at Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
At that stage, they had 4 satellite Sunday schools, and so I was led the Sunday school at Kirrawee, which was down in Mandarkle Avenue at the time, and my wife, future wife, led North Sutherland, and then we had Loftus and we had the main church at Sutherland. So it was a very dynamic church, a lot of outreach. A lot of people ultimately went into the ministry. There was a fellow called Kevin Flanagan, who I always call one of my failures. He was the guy who came along to youth group but was never going to become a Christian. And, we tried to convert Kevin many times and then I left and got married and then he found the Lord,
Yeah.
and went as a missionary to Tanzania.
Yeah, wow.
And so it was, and Sue was reminiscing about some of the girls that she went through school with, who went to youth group, and probably only one of them ever continued. So it was, but we still have friends, going back to that time.
Yeah.
So it was a great church because they expected people in the church to do stuff. They had to, and people did.
Yep.
And so I've always taken that sort of philosophy. We moved to Engadine Church when we got married because that's where we lived.
Yep.
And then came back to Sutherland for a while, and then went back to Engadine when Jack Norman was there, and he asked me to sort of come back there. And then we really, from a call from God, literally driving to church one day, got the call to go to Midnight Church. And it was just one of those sort of things that, look, God talks to people and sometimes people aren't listening, right? I mean, he talked to Moses face to face and Moses didn't even listen then,
Yeah.
And so we drive to Midnight Church that morning, and not expecting to be there. We hadn't even intended to be there, but the sermon that day was written just for us. And so there was, Sue was sort of, I'm not sure we should be doing this. I got a lot of kids that go to that school, that go to that church, but after the sermon, it was, lump of 4B2 and right between the eyes. It was sort of God, this is where I want you.
Yeah, wow.
At the same time, why did I come to Solis? Well, there'd been changes in the ministry at Menai, which was a church plant, fantastic church plant.
Yep.
Grew really well, and the first minister Rob Barry left, and from that moment it just stayed, and then just gradually went downhill because different people came in with different visions and with different theological backgrounds, and
Totally.
you know, it wasn't happening. We got a new minister, and I actually took him out to lunch and sort of said, look, I'm sitting on my hands, I'm doing nothing, I'm not preaching, I'm not leading services, I'm not doing anything. What can I do?
Mm.
And he couldn't come up with anything. And I had prayed that God would give me a clear vision that now was the time to move to Solis. And he did,
And here you are.
you know. So I'm Gideon, you know, I lay that fleece out, you know. I pray for clear guidance, you know. When I went to Bible college, I had the choice of Moore College or SMBC, which one would suit me. And God clearly led me to SMBC, which suited me well. So I worked with the Muslim side in SMBC. Never worked or was interested in Africa, but that's where God had me planned.
Yeah.
So I'm going to Africa. I'm thinking, God, why am I spend all this time with Muslim background in college? I'm going to Africa. You know, but the people who I had to deal with, my shopkeepers, were mostly Indian.
Oh, in
And
Africa.
what faith were they? They were Muslim.
Yeah, there you go. Oh,
So I'd go in there
yeah, there's lots
and
of Muslims in Africa.
we'd shop one day a week,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd say, Ethan, I'm coming to your place for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand the Arabic sort of culture, you invite yourself for lunch.
Yep.
And then I'd say to them, do you have a Bible? Oh, no, we don't. You know. I said, well, I have a Quran. I have a copy of a Bible in Swahili and in English. Would you like a copy of it? They have to accept the gift. Got to understand the culture.
Mm.
Yeah.
Got to understand the rules to play the game.
Mm.
So
That's really cool.
yeah, I have a passion for evangelism,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't see my gifts being used where I was. So
So
yeah,
you-
that's why I came to Solis.
Yeah, and your main gathering is Yarrawarrah. Is
Yes.
that correct? Yep.
Okay, so we
Evangelism out the
moved
wazoo.
away from the mothership, right, and to probably the smallest of all the congregations.
Probably.
We've now got a community group that's grown out of that, and that's sort of strengthening the group. And we've actually got people going to that community group and don't even go to Yarrawarrah, right? And I love the fact that we have a meal with every service. So the very first time we ever came to Solis, and of course we knew quite a few people from Solis.
Yep.
But we sit down, we come in at Kirrawee and we're having breakfast before the meal. So we sit down at a table and people who we didn't know come down and sit down with us, having a meal, sharing the meal, and you talk through the meal. And I thought, okay, it's a great way to do ministry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
right? And I think it's great you're doing the podcast on how to do
Oh yeah, yeah.
the meal. And
The how and why.
and I can see why a lot of churches go, man, this is way too hard. People are going to burn out. But you started doing it, and it's sort of
Yeah.
But we'd been doing it for like back in Gaimir. We've
Yeah.
been doing it for 20 years,
That's right.
almost. So it was a lot of practice figuring out what works. But you've got to do it as a team.
And so people don't come for 45 minutes, have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
You know, how's the weather, Ethan? You know, how's the
Yeah,
weather,
yeah.
Joel? Nice. You know, oh man, I got to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're off.
None of that.
None of that.
None of
Can't have
that.
can't have that.
No, it's done.
You're right.
I want a hearty meal and a hearty conversation.
Oh yes.
You do.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, we got people who don't go to church to come to breakfast.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, how cool is that?
It's so good.
You know,
Even similar, at Yarrawarrah, you've got the footy guys coming afterwards.
and some of those are coming to church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Mm.
And you know, it's not growing at a record pace, but what's a record pace? And the thing I love about Solis is a lot of people, there are new conversions people coming, but a lot of people who haven't been to church for 15 or 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true.
feel comfortable at coming to Solace.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really, really good.
I think, and that's the benefit of our choice to do church for a longer period of time
Yeah.
with a meal,
Ah.
with a gathering. Like we gather beforehand, we might have the meal before or after, but it's spending more time together because we've got Jesus in common. Is it's fun. It's
And we-
calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
We occasionally go up to ride.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ride is awesome. I love going to ride.
Yeah,
So much fun.
you know.
So
So and yes, there's the opportunity to talk to people. You know, Jesus.
Yeah.
Did he preach for 25 minutes?
No.
No way.
Well, Paul certainly didn't.
Because that guy fell out of the window.
That guy that fell out the window. And
Yeah, but Paul was often criticised as not being a good preacher but a good writer.
Yeah.
And you know, Apollos was probably the better preacher, but he wasn't a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes people who are prolific writers are the people who we try to model ourselves off, whereas they may not necessarily be the right people.
be the right people.
Yeah, okay.
Speaking of writers, you've brought a book with you.
I did.
Mhm.
Could
I
you?
brought
I
it.
love this book. And
Now,
Yeah.
it is
okay,
excellent.
Good spotting. So, this. So I'm an engineer, right? So I read. So this is a book, God's Smuggler. Now, I read this first when I was 19,
Okay.
and somebody gave it to me because they knew I didn't read too many books. And remember, I'm 19. I'm not married. I'm doing youth group. I'm doing Sunday school youth group, and SEBS, part-time uni, and working full-time. So not a lot of
Not heaps of
not
stuff
a
to
lot of
read.
space there.
Yeah.
Right. And they said, Dave, this has got Volkswagens in it. You should read the book.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right up your alley.
my first car was a Volkswagen. I still own several Volkswagens. I can look at any part of Volkswagen and know where it is. I've rebuilt engines. I've blown up a few engines. We race with Volkswagens. We put V8s and supercharged, you know. So there was the connection. So I read the book.
Yep.
And I suddenly realised that here is a guy who's stepping out of his comfort zone.
Do you know what it's about, Joel?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
It's Brother Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Who is the Bible smuggler.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's taking Bibles into places that you can't take Bibles into, and he's hiding them in a Volkswagen. Now, if you've ever owned a Volkswagen, you know how to pack a Volkswagen. And people who pack a Volkswagen can fit twice as much in half the space.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But he was obviously hiding them in different spots and whatever. And I remember one story there where he's just got into Russia for the first time, and he's cleverly sort of secreted the Bibles around the place. And he's so nervous about getting through the border check that about an hour later he pulls over beside a river and decides to cook himself a meal, see. And while he's cooking a meal on a little cooker, he's got a box of Bibles open on the front seat of the car, and the secret police pull up
KGB.
and they search his entire car. And he's been so proud of the fact that he's been able to secretly secrete the Bibles away and get through, and I'm pretty good, you know. And so here is a box of Bibles open, and they searched the car and they didn't find them. And it's like God saying, "Hey, you're not as smart as I am."
And he I think he learns from that kind of thing. And one of my favorite parts of the book is where he pulls up to the border, and they're like, "What do you have in your car?" And he says, "Bibles." And they go, "Oh, that's really funny. Go through." And they don't search. They don't search his car. And he tells them that he's got Bibles in it. It's just it's such an awesome book.
And so as a 19-year-old, I'm going to a fairly sort of staid sort of church, a good church, and suddenly realising, and of course this is the Jesus Revolution time at the same time, right? And realising that really I was sitting in a V8 car in the garage and occasionally turning the motor on.
Yeah.
But I wasn't driving it out the door.
Right.
And I realised that as Christians we have greater opportunities and greater power than we would ever think about.
Mm.
And Paul talks about it that, one day we'll be in heaven and all things will be explained. And when we get up there, we'll think, oh, man, I wish I knew this when I was there.
Hmm.
And so I realised that I was really only doing a tenth of it being a Christian. And you know, should I be talking to people? Should I be, you know, doing more? And it challenged me to have faith. And I remember the second time we went to Kosovo, we came back, and you were really in a very foreign. You're in a UN controlled country. You know, there's people putting bombs under people's cars still. You know, it's a tricky place. We're building in a different culture. You've got to understand the whole thing. And every morning we would join as a group. We'd have breakfast. We'd open God's Word. We'd pray that He'd get us through that day. And I said to one of the ladies when we got back, "What do you miss about not being in Kosovo?" And she said, "Not having to rely on God every day." Because we're in the Shire, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you know, I go to Bible study once a week, go to church, and I'm a Christian.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
There you had to rely on God 24/7. Sometimes in the Shire it's just a bit too easy.
Yeah, pretty comfortable.
Yeah. There's a really lovely story in The God Smuggler where he's been talking about the fact that throughout this whole book, throughout all these journeys in this car, he's been relying on God, and the car's getting pretty rough, and it's his last go, and he's been doing it for years, like it's been going for a long time, and he pulls into the mechanic, and he pretty much just like rolls it in, like it's.
So he's in Germany.
Yeah.
And what better place for the car to blow up but in Germany?
Yeah.
Because they got a spare engine sitting in there. And
Totally.
My personal sort of taking out an engine is 7 minutes. The world record to take it out and replace it's 2.5 minutes. But the mechanic still takes an hour and a half. So he's in Germany.
Yeah.
And he's had to exchange more money than he made a mistake at the border to exchange more money. And he realises that he's got enough, but not quite enough. And so before he says to the mechanic, go and do it, he realises he doesn't have the money to pay him. And so he says, yes, replace the engine. And he had two refugee boys with him, and they had no money. They were getting a free ride with him, so he knew that they had nothing. And so, you know, the mechanic said, okay, the car's ready to go, and the refugee boys are sort of coming back, and he still doesn't have the money. And they come up, and they said, you never guess what happened, brother. He says, we're walking down, and the lady came up and says, are you boys Dutch? And they said, yes, we're Dutch. She says, I need to give you this. And gave them the right amount of money just for the thing.
It's unreal.
Right up to the wire. But he trusted God, and God came through. Right.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience when I was in Kosovo, in Tanzania. At one stage, we had to get our own water supply. We were a school, we were adjacent to a teachers' college, which was originally run by CMS. So it was, but it had been taken over by the government about 20 years before. So it's run by the government. CMS actually put in the pipe up from the river, and we've hooked off the back of that. But every weekend the college would cut off our water. And so they're starving us of water. Oh, did we turn that valve? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. You know, yep, sure. So I put it to the committee that we have to put in our own water supply. It's going to cost 10 grand. We don't have the budget for it. And they said, we can't afford that. And I said, well, I can put in a temporary for 4 grand. You know, temporary pump, put a pipe up there. We don't extend the electricity down. You know, there's different ways of doing it. And we'd already sent out a letter to our supporters to say we wanted to raise money, $10,000 to put the water in. One of the ladies who came regularly once every year, a good supporter, come from New Zealand. And she arrives the week after. So we've actually bought the stuff. And
For the
arrives and
temporary?
she says, look, we had a quick whip around church, literally, the Sunday before we went. I'm terribly sorry. We haven't been able to get the 10,000. I got 4,000 for you.
Yeah, wow.
We never advertised the 4,000.
Mm.
That's really cool.
I'm going to buy the pump, and you can't always get everything you want in Tanzania. You got to go with what you got. Right? And we were a fair way up the hill, so the pumps I knew I had. I'm a water guy, so I understand pumps. We could only get halfway up the hill, and we're going to put a water tank there and have another pump and get another halfway up the hill. So I go to the pump shop in the second biggest city, which is in Mwanza, and so we're on Lake Victoria. I catch the ferry across, which I did once a month, because you could only buy sort of certain things in Mwanza. And I go to the pump store, knowing the type of pump I want to go. And as I go into the pump store, right in front of me is an Australian pump, a Davey firefighter pump, used by farmers to fight fires with.
Yeah.
And I know this pump, and it's a high pressure pump. And they said, oh yeah, we got this delivered. We can't even remember ordering it.
Well,
Take that.
just
There's the
turns
pump
up.
I need.
That's great. That is so excellent.
So I realised after reading this book that I wasn't expecting God to answer prayer like that. After that, I did expect God to answer prayer like that, and I prayed like that. On another occasion, we had a friend who tragically died in a boating accident, and he was lost, and his body wasn't found, and he actually helped two boys get to shore, and to raise the alarm, they actually climbed Point Perpendicular at night without ropes.
Wow.
And if you've ever been to Jarvis Bay, they don't call it Point Perpendicular for no reason. And when the SCS got there, they couldn't understand how the boys had got up, but they had. Robert was lost. His widow was a good friend of ours. We owned a house there together. I should have been on the boat, but I wasn't. And the problem was they couldn't confirm that he died. So that without that, the insurance are not going to pay. Maybe he's faked his own death. Maybe he's gone somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
So 7 years before they can say that he's died. So it's a real problem. We have to find the body to prove that he's dead. This is out now at rough seas, out in the ocean past Jarvis Bay. So I had a Christian friend who was a bold prayer, and he prayed with us, and he said, I'm going to pray that we find that body within 7 days. And I think, whoa, we don't pray like that. That's just a little bit too specific here, not forgetting the book I'd read. And that's what we prayed. So, okay, we go back home, we wait for 7 days, and on the 7th day, we're all at the house waiting for the phone call. 7 days goes past, an hour goes past the time, no phone call. Okay, maybe God didn't choose to answer it. So we hop in the car, about to go home. Oh, stop, just got a phone call. They found his body 2 hours ago.
Wow.
Took them 2 hours to get back to shore to find it. So they found the body floating in rough seas, 10 kilometres from where it was, in the middle of the ocean, an hour before that time.
God is good. That is wild.
Right?
Can I ask you, before the final question, you've mentioned college a fair bit, Bible college. You've gone there 4 times, I think you said. Why did you go 4 times?
Okay, so I've got 2 degrees in engineering.
Yep.
And I got the equivalent of a half a MBA, which is a graduate diploma. And I was going to go back to do a master's in engineering. And I was visiting a friend of ours who was the Bishop of Northwestern Australia. And we had planned to do some locum work up in the relieving ministers up in northwestern Australia. And David Mulready is his name, a good friend of ours. And he said, look, David, I would ordain you because I know of what you've done and the private study you've done. He said, but for the sake of the congregations, it would be good if you had a course. And I had already outlined that I was going to do a master's in engineering, and it was a master's by research. And I actually already had a topic, I had it approved, I had the funding for it. And he said, why don't you go to Bible college instead? And it was literally while we're cleaning our teeth on Saturday night, sort of, as I'm saying, it was like a 30-second conversation.
Yeah.
Right? So I did. I went to Bible college expecting to go and work as a locum up in northwestern Australia.
Yeah, wow.
And I always find that then God's got a good sense of humour. Some friends of ours had been working at Kutoki as the Australian headmaster there, and he'd come back and, told the story about what they've been doing. We were there, and he said, look, we've got funding from the Australian government, $100,000, we've got to spend it by October. We've probably got another 100,000. We need to build these buildings. Got no one to do it. And I thought, I can do that, And so I sort of said to Sid, I could probably help you there. Literally, no more than that.
Mm-hmm.
A week later, I'm getting a few phone calls, sitting down having coffee. 2 months later, I'm in Africa.
Yeah, wow.
It was never on my radar,
No
ever.
on the radar at all. Yeah, that's cool.
And yet everything I had done in the 40 years leading up to it, finance, organisation, building, structures, working out of country, God had prepared me for that time.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool.
So, for 3 years, I spent up to 6 months of the year in Kutoki, and 6 months working back as a contract engineer. And when I did it, which was in 2009, 10 and 11, was a time where engineering was sort of a bit thin. And so I'd often, first time I came back, I came back and they kept me on as a contractor in name, and they sort of said, look, we actually haven't got any work for you. As soon as something comes up, we'll use you, but we've got nothing.
Yeah.
So it was a big firm. So I walked upstairs to talk to some of the other guys in some of the different sections. Oh, Dave, you're back. Oh, we knew you were coming back. Oh, we got this big project. We're just waiting for you. Can you... Right, and so the section I was working for was out of work, and so 10 minutes later I walked back and I said, okay, I need 5 guys.
Yeah, awesome. That's great.
And we've got to do the job in 9 months.
Yeah.
Well, no, we haven't. We've got to do it in 6 months, because in 6 months' time, I'm back to Africa. So we did a 9-month job in 6 months. Client was happy, everyone was happy.
Oh, yeah.
And I sort of signed the plans off and went back to Africa.
Unreal.
And so every time God has provided,
Yeah.
right, just what we need.
That's really cool.
And that's what I learned from the book, that we should be trusting in God more.
Yeah.
We should take that bold step.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay. Well, final question. Are you ready for it?
I am.
So we talked about so much in your life in the last 2 episodes. If you could look back or go back in time, what would you like to tell your younger Christian self that you know now?
Right. Well, I've taught Scripture for 15 years. And I only started teaching because I was going to Bible college at the time, and somebody needed a week off to go somewhere else. And so I took Scripture class for 1 week.
Yep,
1 week.
Yeah,
Right.
1 week, eh?
It's been a long week.
Be wary of the 1 week.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I continued doing that while I was at college.
Yeah.
And then after I left college and I'm working as a contractor, I said to my boss at the time, and I already had the job, I need to have Tuesday mornings off, work from home so I can teach Scripture. Is that an issue? Now, what boss is going to not give someone some time off to do something they love, knowing that they're going to work twice as hard elsewhere? So they said yes. And I've had it applied in the next probably 10 years, worked for 2 different firms, and in the job interview, they'd sort of say, "Now, David, you got any questions?" "Yeah, I just got one." "Are you prepared to give me time off to do this?"
Yeah.
And do you know what? They always said yes. And what I would have told my younger self is I should have asked that question years before.
Yeah, cool.
I'm too busy with family. I'm too busy with study. I'm too busy with work. My work won't give me time off. I can't fit it in. I'm Moses sitting in that burning bush, and I'm still finding excuses. What I would have told my earlier self was take your time off. Ask your boss. Take a half day's leave without pay. Right? Give God more than he expects. Well, more than you expect.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, I never asked myself that question earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did, I found it was so easy.
Yeah.
Everyone said yes.
Yeah. Unreal.
Right? And when I have done that, God's provided more work. So I've actually sort of made more money by taking time off. Yeah, go figure.
Go figure. Unreal. That is really cool.
So
such
let
an
me
encouragement.
encourage people who are
Yeah.
working full time. I'm too busy. I can maybe help when I retire, except I'm going to go away on holidays then, so maybe I can't help then. Do something else.
Yeah, you might retire from work, but you don't retire from ministry.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
It
not.
gives me more time.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, that's cool. I think even like you started the first episode, we're talking about Hudson's. Like he's on that other end of
That's
this
right.
of the age spectrum,
That's right.
and he's talking about being committed. And that's the same.
But
same thing.
he made a great decision. He got to a watershed moment in his life, and he made a decision that a lot of people his age fall down on. And I was impressed.
Yeah.
Well, I can say I'm just as impressed by you coming on this podcast and talking about everything in your
I'll
life.
talk to anyone.
No, but it's been really, really fun having you on.
Yeah, it's been unreal.
Yeah.
Really, really, really cool.
Thank you so much for giving up your time.
Yeah.
Well, Thank you for having
and
me.
to tell your story, because it's been really, really important. You've always been someone on our list that we wanted to get on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great to be able to finally do it.
So good.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to be used. I'm here till Tuesday.
Try the veal.
That's it.
You got any final words, Ethan? Anything you want to finish up?
Yeah, I have heard some of those stories before. Some of those stories I had not heard before. I've known you for a while now. You've been really lovely to my family, particularly Katie's side, for a long time. And yeah, I'm just always really, really encouraged by you, and I've been now getting to do ministry with you at Yarrawarra. That's been great fun.
Well, let me tell you a quick little
super
story about
encouraged.
Ethan. Right.
Excellent.
So one day, Saturday morning, I'm in Miranda Fair, and there's this young couple sort of having breakfast. Do you remember this?
I don't know if I do.
Right. So you're sitting there having breakfast at Miranda Fair, and Katie says, "Oh, hi, Dave. Come." I'm thinking, should I, interrupt you? Yeah, why not? And I think you guys were just about to get engaged or whatever you see.
Yep.
So I said to Katie, because Katie is really almost like my quasi-granddaughter, right? And so I said, now listen, Katie, when you decide to marry someone, you've got to be really careful who you marry, and make sure that you don't marry someone who's a musician, because they're really fly-by-night sort of people.
Can't trust them.
Full well Ethan's background, of course. You see. And I said, really, the one thing you've got to make sure, don't think about anyone who's thinking about going to ministry full-time, because that's a hard gig as well.
Oh, yep. And I'm sitting there like, this is going to go great.
He wasn't quite sure whether I was sort of
Serious or not?
Yeah, definitely
setting
not.
him up or not.
Yeah. Oh, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Anyway, she took my advice.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, Ethan, you're encouraged, so as am I. And I think this is why we do the podcast.
Yeah,
because
totally.
we get to hear the stories of how God has worked through everyone's lives.
Yeah.
at church.
I'm encouraged the fact that we as a church do this. It's just absolutely amazing. Do you know of any other church that actually does this? I can't. I can find podcasts on all sorts of things, but not interviewing the Joe Blows of the church.
Yeah. Yeah, you see like Christian leadership podcasts, and they interview
Yeah.
supposedly big preachers and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Not sure if anyone else does.
Maybe
They
we
might.
should
They
we
might
should franchise this. I can see.
franchise it.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if the chip lunch is ready to be franchised. We got to keep the IP in house. But yes, again, been fantastic. Thank you for coming on, Dave. It's been really good. And if anyone wants to chat to you, I'm sure you'll be very happy to chat to them. So
Definitely.
now they've heard your story, they'll know heaps about you. So there's plenty to
Probably
talk
for
about.
anyone.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone that's listening or watching. Thank you to Ethan, co-hosting after a bit of a hiatus. That's it.
Good to be back.
Good to have you back. And thanks for dropping your engagement, your wedding ring on the floor. But we're going to wrap it up and wrap up the chips, as we like to say, and we'll finish with a one way. But thank you very much, everybody.
One way.
One way.